there anybody here that's just started coming in the last year? Raise your hand. Okay, welcome. Thank you for that. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard when you attend any kind of organization to be able to walk away immediately and say what it is. But Unity has its own little challenges because, you know, a lot of people want to come in and say, oh, it was a church. Well, it wasn't really a church, but it talks about God, but it doesn't really talk about God the way that we normally talk. It talks about Jesus, but not the Jesus that most people... Yeah. And, you know, I've had the experience of growing up in church and tried different paths, and Unity honors all paths to God. So I've had the opportunity to experience God in a variety of ways, and it's all a joy, and it's all still in me. Every once in a while, hallelujah will come out of will come pouring out of my mouth. And I'm just, you know, I spend time where I feel most connected, and right now, and not like I'm going, you know, to become a Zen Buddhist next week, but this is what feels like home to me. And one of the ways that we describe this, if you were to walk out the door and say, well, what did you do this morning? You could say, I took a spiritual path for conscious living. I tried out a spiritual path for conscious living. That's what we sometimes use a description for Unity. And yet, you know, all these words, these spiritual words, keep tying back and intertwining with other points of view about our understanding of God. And one of the terms that I've known since I was a little girl was describing or using the word as a way to experience God. Now, in my early days, and then especially in my fundamentalist evangelical holy roller days, we spoke of the word as another word for the Bible. Anybody heard the Bible being referred to as the word? And just an FYI, Unity looks at the Bible a little bit differently too. So we usually interpret it metaphysically. We do see some history in it. We do see a lot of allegory and symbolism. And we also have a chance to explore the Word of God as a power, and actually a word for God, just like we would say God is life. Have you heard me say that? God is life, not God gives life, but God is the life presence in this universe. Or you might think of God as love, not giving love, but being love, expressing as love, and through us. We also think of God as the Word. And the way that it's described in the book of John, up here on the screen, was, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Everything came into being through the Word. Everything came into being. Think of this universe that we live in. All came into being through the Word. Well, that can be a little confusing. How did that happen? We don't see God with a mouth and a voice speaking out into the darkness and saying, let there be light. And yet there's the Word, thinking of the Word as divine ideas. A mind, a single mind, we speak of as omniscience, is holding infinite words and ideas in consciousness. And as divine mind holds that word in consciousness, it begins to unfold in manifestation. But it also requires some help from us. So when we look at the scripture, John chapter 1, when it was originally put down in writing in the Greek, and it came upon that word, it actually came from the word logos, and logos means creative power. So I'm going to re-speak that scripture this way. In the beginning was the creative power, and the creative power was with God, and the creative power was God. Everything came into being through the Word, or the creative power. That's kind of fun to look at it that way. And we take those divine ideas from the mind of God, and we help that creative power manifest those ideas into something physical in our life. How do we do that? Through our words. Our words can be just as important can be an expression or a tool of the creative power to bring things into expression in our lives. So from the book of Proverbs, written thousands of years ago, it said, what you say can preserve life or destroy it. So you must accept the consequences of your words. I've also heard it said, life and death is in the power of the tongue. That's a lot of responsibility for a very verbal species, right? Life and death is in the power of what you say. Jesus said it this way when he was listening to people argue about what foods the Jews could eat, because there was a lot of dietary rules, what was kosher. He said, it's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person, but what comes out of the mouth that defiles. What we say has the ability to bring havoc in our lives. So some of you probably, when we talk about this topic of words, have heard about Dr. Masaru Emoto. He's the one that did Hidden Messages of Water. He discovered that when he took water and he put labels on the jars of water, and those labels were all kinds of different words, he discovered that depending on the word, it produced either beautiful, intricate crystals when the water was frozen, or total chaos and mess. One even looked like a man with a rifle. It was bizarre. So he continued to study a little bit, and we have a video I want to show with you today where he's working with words and its effect on rice. Are we ready to go, Marley? Let's go.
Dr. Emoto has conducted another interesting experiment. He placed rice into 3 glass beakers and covered it with water. And then every day for a month, he said, "Thank you" to one beaker, "You're an idiot" to the second, and the third one he completely ignored. After 1 month, the rice that had been thanked began to ferment, giving off a strong, pleasant aroma. The rice in the second beaker turned black, and the rice that was ignored began to rot. Dr. Emoto thinks that this experiment provides an important lesson, especially with regard to how we treat children. We should take care of them, give them attention, and converse with them. Indifference does the greatest harm.
Tell some dreamy story, but almost.
I don't have the translation for that, sorry. But what he was pointing out to us was so interesting. Because when you think about it, rice doesn't have ears. It doesn't have feelings. And so I'm wondering what the connection was between him saying these words and the rice responding in this way. What if his words, and his consciousness, we just put in a single category of energy? And what if the rice is also energy? And now these are intertwining with each other, where he was probably setting intentions with meaning behind each word that he was saying. You saw him, showed a sign of reverence to the rice when he said thank you. But he got kind of a stern face when he said, "You idiot." So he's just promoting energy in the direction of the rice. And I would claim that even though he says we're ignoring this third beaker, he set an intention to ignore the third beaker. And I really think that has just as much energy, harmful energy. I am intending to ignore you, which means you have no value to me. Have we not done that with people? Where we think we're ignoring them, but they're still very conscious in our mind. I mean, I'm pretty sure every day he walked away from there, he knew there was a third beaker there. He was still tied to it because he set the intention to ignore it. And he seemed to think that had the most negative effect. Indifference had the most negative effect out of the 3. So what if it's not so much the words that are spoken, but that it's actually the energy of the words. And who decides on the energy of the words? The word itself? No, we do. We speak our words with energy. And those words are words that usually we have spoken before. There is very little that you say today that you haven't said sometime before in your life. Would you agree with that? Kind of sad, actually. But there's always divine potential and an opportunity to start thinking about what we want to say instead. From the book of Psalms, again, thousands of years ago, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord. And if we want to modernize that or metaphysically interpret that, let's look at it this way. Let the words of my mouth and the beliefs of my subconscious be aligned with divine mind. So what if we got up every morning and instead of just letting our history and belief system and subconscious repeat itself today, what if we decided that our words were going to be guided by divine mind? Just setting that intention actually connects you energetically with divine mind, and you start to create a channel for those divine ideas to come into your conscious awareness. Hopefully in such a way that you're taking them in and feeling them and agreeing with them so that they get to take up residence in your subconscious, and they're the ones that start repeating. That would be nice. And we've been told that 95% of our behavior, including what we say, is coming out of that subconscious realm. So we get a chance every day to find out what's stored in there. If we pay attention to our words, you're going to find out what's stored in there. And it didn't get there by accident. The words that come out of our mouth didn't just show up one day. They actually got past the gatekeeper. Who's the gatekeeper? Conscious mind. It's the part of you that's awake and aware in this moment, that you're sitting in this room and you're listening to me and you're present. And sometimes we're so present but caught up in what's happening out here that either frightens us or makes us mad or hopeless. So when we're watching out here and we're talking about what's out here and we're feeling those heavy emotions, that gets stored in the subconscious and then repeats itself every time it comes across one of those situations that look similar to our past. So, gatekeeper, you've got a big job. Remember, life and death is in the power of the tongue. Life and death is in the power of awareness. What are the words that are coming out of our mouth? And is that the kind of word that we want to have repeat itself? Garbage in, garbage out, right? And we're responsible for taking it in. These words that we're talking about speaking, consciously or subconsciously, are not magic. That's not what their power is. The power is coming from what's going on behind it in us. So it doesn't really help to stop speaking negative words unless you're catching the meaning behind it. Because if you still believe, even though you bite your tongue, you're probably still holding on to the belief about it. You're probably still feeling the energy of those words, which is energy that escapes beyond the body and out into the world around us. Jesus was trying to help us understand that when he said, you've heard that it was said, you shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be liable to judgment. But I say to you that if you are angry with a brother or sister, you will be liable to judgment. So we're not talking about judgment from a man on a throne. We're talking about judgment day happening every day based on divine law, that law of attraction. So whatever it is that we are being in consciousness, feeling in emotions, knowing in our beliefs, is sending that information out and doing just as much havoc out in the world, or good, depending on what you're choosing, whether you're saying the words out loud or you're holding the words in consciousness. So we've got some work to do. I mean, think about how often we talk and we're classifying people, classifying races, classifying parties, classifying people that are different. And we're using our words to describe them. And in those words, it's usually something that says, they think they're better than me, but I'm better than them. Or they're trying to take my good from me. Or why is it that they get more than I get? They always get treated better than I do. You've heard the words, you've said the words. You know what it's like to define circumstances and people with our words as if they have power over us. How many powers are there in the universe? What's its nature? Good. Yeah. So if it appears in our mind's eye that they have power over us, it's because we're giving it to them. We're actually misusing the creative power. The creative power is meant to serve us and to provide our every need. But every time we open our mouth or hold the thought of words that carry energy, we're basically creating that with the creative power. And most of the time, we're also unaware of it. Your body, we talked about this last week, has intelligence in it. The cells have intelligence. And let me read what Charles Fillmore says about that. The spoken word carries vibrations through the universal ether and also directs the intelligence inherent in every form, animate or inanimate. So when we're speaking words of judgment about our bodies, the intelligence of the cells are listening and obey. It's not going to cure our problem, not going to change our problem. It's just going to make it worse. If we decide that what our body looks like or how it behaves is not up to par, then the body only has the option of listening to that intelligence that you're speaking to it and behaving in like kind. You know, it's possible, I'm sure this hasn't happened to you, but some folks will come to Unity, and after the service, they'll pop into the meditation room with a prayer chaplain, and together they will pray and affirm the truth about God in a situation in their life. But have you ever noticed that after you pray, then you get in your car and you drive home and you pick up the phone and you call your friend and you tell them how things are not working out well for you? How what you just prayed about and agreed about for good, you actually see as bad, limited, not working in our life? That's like driving with the brakes on. We can't get anywhere. Keeps us stuck if we keep affirming what we don't want in our life. And it's the power of those words is making themselves known. Jesus put it this way in the book of Luke: for nothing is hidden that will not be disclosed, nor is anything secret that will not become known and come to light. So how many times have we said something harsh to someone and then a minute later we say, I didn't mean that? Are you sure? Where did those words come from? If not something stored in our subconscious. We may have forgotten it, but that doesn't mean it's still not doing its work within us. So this is a chance for us to watch and listen to our words. You know, if we can't be mindful before we say it, then at least be mindful after we said it and ask ourselves, is that true? Is that based on divine truth, or is that based on the fear of my ego? And do I want to keep using those words? So there is gifts in our negative words. They're like little flags that say, oh, there was something that needs to be looked at within ourselves. What meaning have I given that? What belief or error belief do I have about that situation, and how can I transform it? That's a whole lot of what Unity focuses on, is knowing the power of our conscious thought. Thoughts held in mind produce in kind. That's just the divine law. And so when you come here to Unity, one of the things we focus on is the power of our words, because it's a divine law that's working for everybody all the time, and it's time for us to notice, to catch ourselves, preferably before we speak it. But you get better and better at it as you practice this. It's just a chance to adopt your power of power. One of our 12 powers is power, and that is your ability to choose your words. So if they escaped and you recognize, whoa, I forgot I was holding that in consciousness, let me choose again. What would I prefer? Who would I like to be? How would I like to see life unfold for me? And then we begin to claim that aloud, vocalize it, make it firm. Imelda Shanklin, Florence Scovel Shinn, two gals that were kind of both in the same era. She wrote many books, one of which was The Game of Life and How to Play It. What a great title to make you think that life is a game. As a spiritual being, this life has no power over us, no matter how bad our life looks. It has no power over our spirit. What if we could look at it as a human being, as a game, and that there was a way to play it as long as you're plugged into the divine laws for your good? So one of the things she said was, I have a friend who often says on the phone, do come to see me and have a fine old-fashioned chat. This old-fashioned chat means an hour of about 500 to 1,000 destructive words, the principal topics being loss, lack, failure, and sickness. I reply, no, I thank you, but I've had enough old-fashioned chats in my life. They're too expensive. But I will be glad to have a new fashioned chat and talk about what we want, not what we don't want. She says there's an old saying that man only dares use his words for 3 purposes: to heal, to bless, or to prosper. What man says of others will be said of him, and what he wishes for another, he is wishing for himself. Take that in for a minute, because even though we think we're insulting on purpose, consciously choosing to hate another and say it out loud to anybody that will listen, little do we realize that the meaning behind our words is an energy that is very much associated with the person who's thinking them and saying them. As much as you think you're putting them in their place, you're putting you in that place. So notice before you start watching the news and then commenting on it, where your words are, because whether we think that we're describing someone else or not, they belong to us. We are emitting that energy and, according to the law, attracting more of the same for ourselves. So how about if we start saying what we prefer instead? I mean, just that thought right there is enough to lift us up, to talk about the things we want instead. Nobody taught me that as a child. What I have a vision of is, when I'm upset, screaming, whatever, I might hear a parent say, what's wrong? What's wrong? And then I go off on a long tangent about what's wrong, and I get all worked up. I had 3 brothers. Trust me, I had lots of wrong going on around me. Or we could go with, what would you prefer instead? How would you like this to look? It forces us to turn towards the good. It forces us to think about the potential in this. And it's hard for us to do if we don't know what the potential is, if we don't spend time in meditation and study and a reminder of what this universe is made of. So keep focused on what it is that you prefer. One of my favorite sentence starters is, wouldn't it be nice if? If we just went through something difficult, wouldn't it be nice if? I got a little, I don't want to use the word desperate, but I got firm, let's say that. Because as our friend Gordon passed away recently, he had been our accountant for Unity for 18 years, donating his time to that work. And he lived thousands of miles away, and his computer was nowhere near me, and passwords were nowhere near me, and user IDs were nowhere near me, and I couldn't even begin to imagine how we were going to overcome this. But the board decided that we are going to hire an accountant, and if we had to start completely from scratch, so be it. And I was tasked with finding this accountant. Well, I got to say, when I left that meeting, I was feeling overwhelmed, not really knowing where to begin and thinking of all the time it was going to take for me to not only find this person, but then help this person take the next steps. And then it struck me. Ding! Let's see, what do I talk about on Sundays? See, I'm telling you, mostly I'm always up here talking to me. I'm not kidding. And I just got firm about this and said, you know what? I'm not going to do anything about this. I'm going to let the universe do what it says it can do, which is provide our every need. It already knows who this person is, and it's going to bring me this person, and I'm barely going to have to lift a finger. So I said that out loud for like 3 days, and then I decided the way to start was to, we have a Facebook group of Unity ministers, and I just went online and said, can anyone recommend an accountant? I barely gave any information other than that. I was like, I'm going to let this go. I literally got a text and a phone call coming in at the exact same moment with the same woman's name. Her rate was incredibly low. And yes, she would be happy to help us. And oh, by the way, she already used the software that we're used to using. So I'm guessing by the time I said that, it must have been around a Friday or Saturday. By Monday, we had an accountant, and I barely even thought about it, and we had an accountant. Use firm words of what you prefer. Instead of making this into a big, huge, complicated deal, use your words to speak what is true. Was there infinite divine potential available to us? Of course. There's only one presence and power, and it's infinite divine potential. So I did not say anything. I did not expect anything that would not be available to me. Try it. Give it a try. And make sure that your emotions agree with you. Because if I say those words out loud and then sit there every night going, how's this going to happen? 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 Then I'm driving with the brakes on, right? So this is a chance for us to be awake and aware and trust and learn, get more familiar with what the divine potential is, and keep giving it back with your words. Keep giving it back. Let's affirm this up here on the screen. Let the words of my mouth and the beliefs of my subconscious align with divine mind. So when I say that, aligned with divine mind, I'm saying, think about what God is. What is God? Love, energy, light, intelligence, joy, freedom, is that what you said? Strength, goodness, all needs met, infinite abundance. What's your problem? What is God that solves that problem? Meditate on that. Play that out in your mind. What does it mean, abundance? Well, everything is energy, and energy is infinite. Even science tells us that. And then you just kind of let it unfold in your mind what that word, that quality means. How does it apply to life? Well, if energy is infinite and there's always enough, that means there's always enough good for everybody. Just keep playing it out, letting it unfold in your mind, in your heart, in your words, till it starts to sink into the subconscious. That's what I think Jesus was trying to say. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, my words meaning those ideas of truth, ask whatever you will, and it will be done for you. When we speak an affirmative prayer here in Unity, it's not a prayer that starts with, God. It's not a prayer that starts with desperation or hopelessness or unworthiness. It's a prayer, easiest start to an affirmative prayer is thank you. Affirming the good that's coming because it's always being given. So words of gratitude are critical. And we use this style of affirmative prayer because we want to become in consciousness, in our energy, what we are speaking, so that we then radiate that frequency and attract more of the same, more people, more resources, more life into our lives through these words and these beliefs in our consciousness. We affirm the truth about God. That's what an affirmative prayer is. We affirm the truth about God that has to do with this situation in our life. So just be clear on what qualities there are. There's infinite qualities of God, by the way. But start embracing those ideas until you become them. And you're then sure to attract more of the same. So some statements that I would make is, God is the only presence and power in my life, and God is only good. That puts you at ease right off the bat. If you just start with the conscious awareness that God is here in this thing, whatever it is, and it's good, well, that's important to know. Start with that. Acknowledge, begin with God. And that the fullness of God is in this situation. We cannot separate God from any problem that we have. In the midst of the illness is the allness of life. In the midst of the argument is the fullness of love. In the midst of limitation is the infinite abundance of God. Sorry, I'm spitting. I'm full of life, evidently. So what if we're also owning it for ourselves? I am in God, and God lives through me. I'm an extension of God's fullness. I'm an extension of God's fullness. Whatever good God is, I am. We can't be separated. Only one presence. I am part of that presence. It's logical. Even the ego can't argue with this. So allow these ideas to start sinking in. And Eric Butterworth, one of my favorites, said, no matter what else you may be required to say, let something good be said. Let something of the God principle, something of the creative logos, something of the one be articulated so that you can keep in the flow with this divine process. When he says, whatever else you have to say, let something good be said, how many times have you called into the office and said, I'm just so sick, I'm not going to be able to come in. This is a bad one. I've had it before, and I know this is going to last at least 10 days. I can't even get up and go into the doctor's office, so it's going to be a while. This is going to be a doozy. Or, I'm so sorry I won't be able to come into work today. I'm not feeling well, but I'm really looking forward to feeling better tomorrow. Doesn't that feel better? Yeah, until you feel it, until you feel the truth of those words. So when Jesus said that the words of my mouth, he said the words that I speak are not my words, but the words of him who sent me. If you spend enough time in prayer and meditation, those words are going to come naturally. They're just going to be part of your everyday language, speaking the truth of God. And as he began to speak those words, he started to become those words. I am the way, the truth, and the life, and so are you. So are you. Own those words, claim those words until you feel only one presence. I'm just part of it. That's ours to do. And as we start to do that with our energy, we begin to free the creative power through our words because we're speaking truth now. Doesn't that feel better? Okay, so here's a little homework for you. Because we're going into the Lenten season, a lot of times Christians will use this season to give up something they really love. I'm asking you to give up the ego's control over your life. And that means whenever it wants to pop out with those hurtful cliches or judgments or profanity, just catch yourself and say, oh, that's not necessary. I prefer to say something that's supportive right now. We've got plenty of critics in the world. So let me see if I can come up with something encouraging, either for myself or someone else. How about if we give up complaints? Remember that practice we tried a few years ago called the complaint-free world? And you put a bracelet on, and every time you catch yourself complaining, you take the bracelet off and put it on the other wrist, and you try to keep it on one wrist for as many days as possible. But as soon as you catch yourself complaining, you have to start over, see how many days you can get it to stay on that one wrist. So interrupt your complaints and the verbalizing the fears and making them worse by what we say about it. How about listening before we speak? What does Spirit say about this? What is my heart saying about this? What's true in the divine mind? How about being a channel for positive power? It's in you. All the wisdom we need to get through every situation is in us. We just open up our heart and mind to let it flow through us, putting into words what we would prefer instead. So speak the kind of words that describe a world you would like to live in. Speak the kind of words that describe physical conditions that you would prefer to have in your body. Speak the kind of words that describe the type of relationship you would like to be in. Speak the kind of words that describe how you would like your finances to be going right now in your life. And just finalize those words with, I know this is true because there's only one presence and one power, and it's good, and it's moving through me. I live and move and have my being in it. Up here on the screen, let's finish with this statement together. This situation may appear to be limiting, but with God as my source, nothing can keep me from my good. Let's take that into meditation. Words, words, words. What good are they? Just hold this idea. Just hold this idea. Just hold this idea in mind. My words have power. What kind of power do I want them to have? I allow the word kindness to rest in my thoughts now. Kindness. The energy of listening, opening, allowing. Kindness, to think of someone before myself. Kindness, to speak uplifting words to others. I am kindness. Abundance. I allow the divine idea of abundance to occupy my mind and my words. Knowing God itself is abundantly present. The infinite substance that fills heaven and earth. There is always enough abundance in the universe to meet every need. Nothing can keep me from my good, for God's abundance is everywhere present. Before I even ask, the divine source has provided. I speak and claim my health and well-being, for God is life, and life is everywhere present. perfect divine life unfolds in every cell of my being, strengthening, balancing. Divine life is enriching and renewing me. The one omnipotence of the universe empowers my very being with health and wholeness. I give thanks for all the good present in God, present in me. Love and life, wisdom, abundance. Life is wonderful. I see it in my mind's eye. I feel it in my emotions. I give thanks for its good. And I let it be. God's truth is my truth, fully present in all things. And now I let it be. And so it is. Amen.